Hello, and welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, powered by Analyst Investors. I'm your host, David Olivencia, co-founder of Analyst Investors, and a passionate advocate for leveraging innovation and technology to drive success. In this podcast, we'll dive into the strategies that top leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs are using to navigate and thrive in this era of accelerating technological change. Whether you're looking to lead more effectively, make smarter investments, or understand how to harness disruptive technologies for exponential growth, this podcast is for you. Each episode will feature conversations with visionary thinkers, industry pioneers, and innovative leaders who are redefining what's possible in today's rapidly evolving world. So if you're ready to start and stay ahead of this curve, let's get started. This is Exponential Growth. All right, everyone. Well, hey, welcome to another edition of the Exponential Growth Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, somebody I've known probably 15 years or so through various networks in Chicago. Admired him as an individual, a leader, CEO and founder, multiple startups, and just doing amazing work. We look forward to jumping in. Please welcome to the podcast, Biju Kulathakal, the founder and CEO of LightSpeed. Biju, welcome to the
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you so much, David. Excited to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, so Biju, you've had a pretty exciting journey, founder of multiple startups. Also give back to the community in different ways, whether it's through your work with IIT and others and education. But walk us through your journey, your life journey, a little bit of your startup journey to give everybody a sense of the amazing things you've done.
Yeah, thank you. I grew up actually as a kid. I grew up in India and Dubai as a kid, and I was lucky growing up in a few different places, exposed to a few different cultures, but then came to the United States to do my undergrad. Did a degree in aerospace engineering from IIT in Chicago, and just exposed to the big, just the entrepreneurial climate in the United States. I think we live in a very special country, where we have, I think, a very unique mixture of capital, talent, and markets that we can access, and then seeing just the innovation and entrepreneurship here. Very excited. Started doing a bunch of different startups, and some in the financial services arena, and some in the robotics area. And this is a Lightspeed. My current company is my fifth startup. And the one I ran just before this was a company called Halo Investing, which was a big platform in the wealth management space. And then I also had another startup which was more of a robotic startup, but serving consumers, called Redbox, which was I was one of the early co-founders of that. So basically, use robotics to help
And I
retail
remember
entrepreneurs.
those in Walgreens and whatever, getting the videos and all that stuff from the Redbox. So yeah, no, remember that startup very well.
Exactly. Yeah, it was great. That was a great experience, sort of building something that served, I think, the majority of America in terms of basically using automation to make retail delivery much more efficient and much more user friendly and convenient. So you could sort of get access a product in a place you're already going to, as opposed to going to a separate video store. So that was great. We sold that to a public company many years ago. But then after that, did a few different things, like I said, in financial services, and now running this robotics and AI startup called Lightspeed. And the goal for Lightspeed, we started this to basically make to solve the housing crisis in America. It's a crisis we have in America and around the world. We just have a shortage of homes. We are, I think, short about 6 or 7 million homes in this country. Largely, I think, largely because of a lack of labor. We just housing sort of like, I mean, building homes, sort of like farming is not something the average young person wants to do anymore. The A lot of the workforce in this sector were people who started doing this decades ago, and we just have a shortage of new people in the sector, and and also just different trends going on. Because of that, we just need automation to help solve some of these issues. So with Lightspeed, we basically build robotics to build homes. So I mean, we can't build a complete home. We build specific parts of the home, but we bring huge time and productivity savings and cost in building a home. So it's in the very early stages of this trend I see. I mean, I think there's a big focus on AI. I mean, AI is a buzzword. AI is something that everybody uses in some way. But we're in the very early stages of AI. I think right now, I think a lot of people, although the number of people who actually use real AI tools is a very small percentage, and even in that percentage, even in that sector, most people are what I call AI tourists. They're not they're still in the early stages of really implementing AI to make to for it to have a meaningful return on their lives. But we are in another phase, in another part of the AI revolution, which is what I call physical AI, which is where AI touches the physical world as opposed to just the virtual world. And in this world of physical AI, we're seeing huge gains in applying AI to robotics to bring huge improvements in productivity in home building. So that's sort of what we're focused on, and very excited about the path in the very early stages. We've built a few, and we're sort of onboarding some customers to do many more. But we're still building out many aspects of it. But we're excited about the huge productivity gains, because what you see with AI is, if it can dramatically improve productivity and reduce the cost and the time to build homes, you suddenly have you can suddenly have a more attainable home and more affordable home that's available for everybody, and not just for the very wealthy. So that's what's
So,
exciting.
so Bijou, yeah. So when you look at your career, right? Serial entrepreneur, you see things, you trends, and you take action on them, right? And you've had some good exits, and building another one. It's like you keep going. It's not you that itch continues to stay with you, right? And when you look at trends through your career, seen various trends and you attack them. Right now, you're in this kind of you're at a pretty you had two amazing trends, right? Robotics on one side, AI. Are those you see those? I mean, obviously you see those are big trends, or you wouldn't be in there. Other trends that people should be, our listeners should be aware of that you kind of see out there. You say, "Wow, there's some big things here." The listeners out there, when you think about exponential trends, these are things you should also be aware of. Any other trends, Biju?
Yeah, I would say, I'd say there are two main themes in my life. I'm sort of very focused on, and I think, and again, I start these companies. I'm just very curious. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm very curious. Maybe I'm the most curious person in the world. And I think in being in that sort of pursuit of curiosity, right? Like it's really important to see, hey, what can you do differently? What can you change? And it's for me, there are two main themes I think that are very relevant to all of us. It's going to affect us in a very big way. One is intelligence, and when I mean by intelligence through software, through computing, which is AI, right? AI in the virtual world, AI in the physical world. So one theme is intelligence. The other theme is energy. And I think for us to really harness this intelligence and to consume a lot more services than we currently do, we will just need a lot more energy in this country and in a lot of the developing worlds. and pretty much in any country. There's no country in the world that has like too much energy. Like basically we can always benefit from most services we can create to benefit ourselves and benefit everybody else around us with this energy. So those are I think, two themes you're going to see dramatically. You're going to see the amount of energy that the country produces and the average person on a GDP per capita, on an energy consumption per capita consume is going to, in the United States, I think it's going to double or triple over the next, I would say, 20 years, and which is a short period of time if you look at that trend before that,
Yeah, the
and
history,
the
yeah, the
other
last
thing,
100 years, yeah.
yeah, exactly, and we've grown our energy usage a lot over the last couple of decades, but not at the pace we are going to be consuming the energy at a much higher percentage over the next 20 years, much higher than we've ever done over the past 60 or 80 years. And I think the other thing that's going to happen is because of this intelligence, right? Right. We will be at a stage where the intelligence we depend on is not just here. We are going to be using all these AI-enabled things, which will be tools for us. AI is not the end goal; it's just a tool. It's a tool to do things. It's not the final product. It's always a tool. It's a tool for people, and it's a tool that should be there to benefit people. Not the other way around. So basically, I think I mean, I can go a lot more into depth into what's going to happen with intelligence and AI for people in the virtual and physical world. But I think it's going to be a dramatic change, both in the United States and around the world.
So, with those trends in mind, this is about exponential growth. How do our listeners out there, when they think about these trends, when they think about investing, right? This is about trends. How do you invest and how do you lead? So, on the investing side, you've built some startups that have been kind of, call it, in the investing space or, tangential in that space. You're a venture investor. I think you're on advisory board or venture partner at OCA Ventures. So you understand venture, startups, trends, investing. But our listeners out there, you have some venture folks, but you have some people that are maybe very early on in their investing, career. How should, with all these trends going on, how should they think about investing to best, take advantage of some of these?
Absolutely. So I'd say a couple of things. Like one, I think we're in the midst of I think a big revolution in terms of how AI and energy is going to affect a lot of things that we do in a lot of different industries out there. So one, and we had the when you had the internet boom in the late 1990s, and the world changed completely after that. The thing with the internet and connectivity, right? That probably changed maybe 5 to 10% of U.S. GDP. Okay, now with AI, you basically have something that's going to change 60 or 70% of U.S. GDP, right? So I think that's how important and monumental this trend is for anyone who's an investor. And I think from that standpoint too, the I think we're going to witness, I would say, some of the greatest wealth transfer in history. And what I mean by that is, I think for any incumbent in any industry, their competition is going to be somebody else, either from outside the industry or within the industry, who utilizes AI and tools like that to basically dramatically get productivity goals, growth. So I think, and what happens in situations like that, if you look, whenever you study history, is that if there are 10 incumbents in an industry, the one or two who basically can adapt to those productivity gains, use technology as a tool to adapt to those productivity gains, will take the bulk of the market share, in that industry. So there tends to be a lot more of a winner take all situation in those industries. And so if you're an investor, you should really pay attention. You should really pay attention to that. Look at who are the people who are basically utilizing those tools, adapting that change in an industry. And I think most industries, will get affected dramatically by this. Now, it will take some time. None of this will happen overnight. There are other macro factors that will affect the timing of it. But I'll tell you one thing that timing is exactly hard to predict, but direction is very clear. The direction is 100% clear. You don't have to, and very often to win, you don't have to make the bet to be too timing specific as an investor, as long as you have the right upside, in that direction. And the direction to really pick on is who are the players who are basically utilizing, you know, AI and other different technology tools to really take advantage of the productivity gains that they can in this industry. And as an investor, whether you're in the public markets or the private markets, that's what's going to play out.
Yeah, so I totally agree. And I think, it's like if you look at businesses across all industries, because I believe, and I believe you believe that it's going to impact all industries, that you should look at, whoever the incumbents are in that industries, and then look and see who are the ones kind of leveraging tools, AI and others to disrupt and making moves. And either be aware if you're investing in the incumbent, but be on the lookout for the ones who are disrupting to invest in as well, right? So I think it's very, very wise and insightful there, Biju. Now you've also been, founded multiple companies. What do you think about leadership in times of all this change and exponential growth and AI? And they're talking about not even having, very small companies that can do amazing things, but they're using AI and AI agents and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on leadership in this world of exponential growth?
Yeah, no, I think that, I mean, I think leadership is even more important, in a world like this. And I think one of the key things in leadership, right, is that you're going to see a world, because of these AI tools. Going to see a world where you're going to have a very small number of people, small number of people produce a higher GDP, produce a higher output, So you'll have a, $1 billion company with 10 employees. Okay. You will start seeing things like that. It's hard to imagine, but you will start seeing that. And by the way, that's been the trend from the beginning of time, right? Like for a long time, uh, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the GDP per capita of a person was the same, and it was after the first industrial revolution that was like, I think the GDP per capita of a person was like, I think equalized was like normalized, equalized was something like $300 per person per year. Okay, because the profession that most people had in the world was agriculture. Most people were employed in agriculture, and then after the industrial revolution, you start seeing that productivity growth. Now you're going to see that on steroids. Okay, because of AI, you could do the work of 10 people could do the work of 100, and produce equivalent output. So you're going to see that huge gain, and because that leadership is all important. Leadership at the end of the day, right, is about, hey, how do you how do you best organize and then thereby serve people, right? Because at the end of the day, running a company, doing startups, being an entrepreneur is all about service. It's not about, it should not, and it is not about making money. That's not a inspiring goal either for you or for anybody else. It's not. A lot of people think that, hey, it's super interesting to do these things to, hey, I'll be rich, blah blah blah. But that's really not what it's about. At the end of the day, the thing that really motivates you for a long period of time is about doing something greater than yourself, and that greater than yourself is serving other people. So running a company, starting a company should always be about service, and I think that way for leaders, the higher you are in a leadership capacity, the higher your call to service should be. I think that's what it's about. I think in that way, right? Although we there's sometimes a lot of like shade on capitalism. A lot the best capitalists are the ones who are most about serving other people, because those are the only like long-standing long-term goals. So I think leadership is even more important. But I also think, I think some of the interesting trends we're going to see is that leadership, with tools like GPT and other AI tools, uh, everyone will essentially, from a communication standpoint, from a goal setting standpoint, and even from a coaching standpoint, right? You have tools. It's like everybody can have the best leadership coach. Everybody can have the best communication coach, right? And so that allows, and I think you're going to start seeing that. I think you're going to start seeing where you're going to start seeing a world where uh, uh, a lot of people, leaders are just much more analytical, because these tools, okay, make everything much more structured and organizational, because of how the tool is structured. So I think you're going to start seeing changes in leadership like that. But at the end of the day, the first principle of leadership is it's about serving people. How do you best serve people?
That's it's an excellent model or an excellent way to think about that. In that how it's how you organize and how you serve people. And we're just in a world now that just gives you more tools to automate and how you serve people. But to be good at leadership, you need to leverage those tools with the mentality of how are you serving them, right? And I think it's a good way that, and it's funny because you were talking about the coach and call it leadership principles and leadership, that you're going to have these co-pilots along the way. You're a speaking coach, a leadership coach, all your time management optimizer, right? In terms of how you should be thinking about things. And it's going to produce, I mean, it should produce better leaders, right? In this, you're going to have more, and it should free up some of your time to do more analytic or analyze the analytical stuff, because it's going to be served to you all the time. So I think it's an insightful perspective, and call it model on leadership and how you lead, or in these times that we're in. Biju, anything else that you want to share about LightSpeed, where you're going? How can our everybody who's listening help LightSpeed stay connected with you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me also, with respect to Lightspeed, right? Lightspeed is part of that trend in part of that trend in physical AI, and also part of that. I think what you're seeing with Lightspeed, and you're going to basically see a world where a lot of physical labor is going to be done by robotics. Okay, I think a lot. I say like most physical labor will be done by robotics. Right now, it's a fraction. It's 0.001% of physical labor is done by robotics. I think it's going to go from 0.001% to like 80%, okay, of physical labor is going to be done by robotics. And also tying into an investment theme that you said, and I said like the greatest wealth transfer, part of that is also reflected in the market. So when you really look at the market, right? If you look at the S&P 500, right? The top eight stocks in the S&P 500, which are really all tech stocks, make up 40% of the market capitalization of the S&P 500, right? So which means like 1.5 or 2% of the companies make up 40% of the market cap, right? Is that an aberration, or is that the reality? Maybe it's more the reality. It is the reality. I mean, it's what's actually happening. but it is also telling you something about the future. And what it's telling you about the future is that, hey, and those companies are mostly dealing with like foundational AI models and things like that. But what it's telling you is that every company was going to be a tech company in some way, in terms of where that trend and where those, where those arrows are pointing. So I think that's a key thing. And Lightspeed is a small part of that, but also a big part of what it's going to do in the residential construction side. And at the end of the day, construction is something that happens sort of behind the curtain. What we really care about is the benefit of construction and not how construction actually happens, right? And the benefit of construction is everybody has a high quality, attainable, reasonably priced home, okay, that can be produced really quick, but also is designed really well, and I think that's what Lightspeed wants to deliver. So we are, I think it's when we serve the world of construction, a lot of people we speak to, we say all this, and we and a lot of people find it hard to imagine. Like, I mean, I actually let me put it differently. They find it easy to imagine, but they've always seen that as science fiction. And I keep telling people that, we are going to make science fiction science fact, right? Like that is what is going to happen. And people are starting to see that we're in the early innings. But I think there's going to be a big change in that. So I think we'd love to just connect with people who want to serve, who want to basically use these technologies, work with us on these technologies. That's I think the best connectivity. And anybody else too, we can help with on a robotics and AI basis, even if it's not something commercially that we do. It's a new burgeoning field, and so there's I think there'll be many players, and this is going to be a big part of what we do. So we would just like to lead that change and be part of that change with folks. So anyone we can connect to on that front would be awesome.
Excellent. Well, Bijou, you said something, and I think that I want to reinforce it because I don't think our I don't think our listeners and people truly understand it. It was you said, hey, roughly, you know, uh, there's this opportunity that whatever 0.001% of all the jobs today are done by robots, but we're moving to a very short for 2, 3, 4, maybe more like 5-ish years where 80% are going to be done. 80% of the of human type jobs that require manual work are going to be done by robots. If for those who are listening, if you can think the dramatic changes that's going to cause and how things are going to transform, let's assume it's 5 years. Bijou, I don't know if you think it's 5 years or roughly when you think that time frame is. That is going to be transformational. And so just this is why we do this podcast, to just give people and speak with thought leaders like Bijou that give you a perspective that how do you prepare and how do you best organize for that. So Bijou, any additional thoughts there? And then how do people connect with you on social media to find out more?
Yeah, so I'd say in terms of transforming for that, right? Don't I would say, when that change is going to happen. It's hard to like I've said before, it's hard to call the timing on it, but it's definitely going to happen. And I think the key thing is to see robotics and AI as a tool to help you. I would say at one point everybody got from point to point, on their feet, and then another point they were on horses, and then another point they were on cars, right? And so you saw that. So if you said, hey, if you over a period of time, and that was a long period of time, and if you said, it's like at this point 80% of your transportation is on your feet, and then at some point 80% of your transportation is going to be on something that's automated, right? Like, so that's
Yeah.
that's the scope of the transformation, but it's happening in a much shorter period of time, right? I mean, that happened over hundreds of years, but this was going to happen in a much shorter period of time, which is how these things happen, right? It took 50 years for there to reach a million TV subscribers, and then took 2 years to reach a million, or 1 year to reach a million TikTok subscribers, like, or viewers, right? So from that standpoint, I'd say don't, I mean, that wave and that change is so big. Don't fight the change. Be part of the change. Use the change. Be, like, if you're like using a surfing analogy, like surf the change, be on top of the change, so that use it to your advantage to get from point A to point B. Um, and there's no point swimming against the tide there, so that's sort of how I look at it. And I think, because these things are to our advantage. I mean, are we better off as human beings living today, or live, or living, 200 years ago, when we didn't have all these advantages? And I think another way I look at this is like, if you look at America today, right? The average person, on the average salary in America today lives largely on a better standard of living than the richest person in America did 100 years ago, and that will always be true. So maybe instead of 100 years, we can say maybe the average person 30 years from now will live at a better standard of living than the richest person today. That, I think is a beautiful part of all this change. So let's utilize this change. Let's jump into it. Let's embrace it, and let's be part of the change to be that future. And I think sometimes, I think change is always scary to people, but I think change is also optimistic. It's beautiful to people. I think, and in terms of, I think that's the way I look at this. I'm always like a future optimist on all these things. And the In terms of getting in touch with me, I think the best way is sort of LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, and that's probably the social network I use the most. So, that's the best way to reach me.
Excellent, Biju. We're so glad that you took some time. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, a busy startup, a lot of things going on. You made it a priority to be here and share these perspectives with us. Thank you, Biju. We're wishing you continued success. And here's all the best to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David. So excited to spend this time.